Hey, hello everybody! It's time to read the 5.600 patch notes. So let's do that. Beta build 6.5. Yeah, hello, if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button. If you're thinking about buying Crowfall, go to my website crusaderw.com. You'll find the link below in the description. There you're gonna find a 10% discount code. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to drop by on my Twitch channel. I'm often streaming Crowfall. I'm happy to answer all your questions or ask me directly on Discord. And now let's jump to the video. There will be player nameplates available. I'll show you those in a separate video, probably release that in the next couple of days. Showstoppers, as you're testing, you will notice the seasonal changes have been temporarily turned off. That's fine. There are gaps in some stronghold walls. Yes, we know that performance has been increased significantly. That's good. Then a lot of changes to the campaign. A message is now reliably displayed, showing the number of import tokens that will be used when a character is joining an embargo campaign. Added a cooking station to the slaughterhouse building. Added an indicator to display which bane tree was which. Added a sound for capturing or contesting capture points. Added a new infected quest markers. Added new siege weapons targeting health bars and highlighting. Achieved campaigns should now display correctly in the list. Campaign list entries no longer jump around while scrolling. That's sweet. Change the interaction appearance for neutral signpost to show an incompatible faction message instead of hiding them. Character locked to another campaign can be unlocked in the campaign launch screen prior to entering a new campaign. Corrected an issue with Stronghold rank C, rank 3 Thrall Necromancer proximity buff, which will not properly grant 2 Necromancy experimentation point cap. Crows are now unable to use rune gates while stunned or knocked down. Crows should now receive a warning notification that your import tokens will be spent. Crows will no longer log in with half-empty health bar when they have the Well of Eternity rank 3 buff. Fix an issue that caused temporary text to appear when a keep or fort has yet to be claimed by a faction. Edited the Fort Siege message for clarity. Fixed an issue where siege dates and archive status in the siege schedule could display incorrectly. Fixed an issue where siege weapons were displaying string IDs instead of localized text in the combat. Fixed an issue with siege weapons orientation not matching where the player placed them. Fixed Seed of Life vendor icon to be the Seed of Life rather than the Tree of Life. Fixed vendor socket in keeps. Fort will no longer be friendly after losing the capture, but before another faction takes it over. Guild rewards can now be placed in chests. Lisa's Protection, Well of Eternity rank 3 buff. Lisa's Protection will no longer reduce your health to half upon logging in. Players are now unable to use rune gates while stunned or knocked down. Players should now be correctly prompted when trying to move a character into a new campaign, or one will with a deleted bank if the import will result in import tokens being used. It should also correctly identify the client side when there aren't enough tokens available in these cases. Modified or moved several victory cards. Moved the tree that was clipping into a house. Moved the common vessel vendor to the market of infected or dregs. Resurrection will no longer kill the target of it when in low or high security zones. Siege weapons no longer cull out early. Stronghold building plot class hover UI will now only appear to you if you possess the materials to build it. Updated divine favor points to make it more obvious which are glory, wealth and power. Win-loss music cues to have returned to the campaign results screens. Let's get to the crafting changes. Added a harvesting animation while strafing. Added a unique name for crafting components to make the wildcard campaign crafting UI more intuitive. Added durability as an experimentation line for the horseshoe crafting. Basic arrows now always produce poor quality outcome. Disabled interactions with plants that are within range of a hunger shard and adding messaging in that it is frozen. Fixed an issue with crafting stations missing a pickup interaction option in the EK. Fixed an issue with inventory full tooltip. Fixed an issue that caused the tooltip of the power used to harvest wood without an axe to display an incorrect damage value. Increased the base durability of horseshoes. Recall can no longer be cast while the player has building materials in the inventory. That's a neat change, isn't it? No more porting out with building mats. Recipe. Vendor NPC now clarifies that it requires a crafted vessel human. Remove the system-coded string when you get a reward from a crafting vessel. Remove the relic binding recipe from the crafting book. Resources should have an indicator on the F interaction window of their current status if not collectible harvestable when affected by the hunger. Spamming the enter campaign button while an error message is shown is no longer possible. The crafting window will now show the quality of the final item if it will always be that quality. Updated recipe book loot doppers. Updated the distance that motherloads could be seen from. Updated the icon for metal billets. And updated transmorgify mount recipe icon. Now the changes of the Eternal Kingdom. Added a new public chest type for the EKs that anyone with access to the EK can open. Added icons for Thief Parcel. Characters will no longer be linked to an EK after being banned. Characters will no longer block building placement. Now they are moved to safety if something is placed on top of them. Fix an issue where nobles could place parcels until the monarch placed on first. Fixed an issue where players sometimes were unable to load in an EK. Fixed an issue where sometimes the player was shown too high in zone map. Fixed some floating rocks and bushes in the canyon parcel. Stronghold building plot class hover UI will now only appear to you if you possess the materials to build it. The wall fin, buttress and ramparts can now be attached to stone walls with the new socket placed on the stone walls. Updated the icon for town parcels. Sorry the yawning, but we'll get to the classes soon. UI. Added an image to the barrack sign in God's Reach and updated the quest image to match. Added win-loss music cues to the campaign results screen. Campaign list entries are no longer selectable when their bands are collapsed. Campaign launch screen nav button cycle through the campaign list correctly. Change the default hotkey to open the Alliance menu from T to H. It's configurable in the settings. Changing world band via the nav buttons now displays the distinct band sound. Character panel mitigations now update with any stat change. Displaying promotion in lobby character pop-up. Fix an issue where sometimes an enemy health bar would flash blue. Fixing the interactable state of left-right nav buttons on the campaign launch screen. Group UI now has icons for the group members' class and race. If you brought a package with a special unit frame in it, you can now use it. Go to Settings, UI HUD to set it. Instant purchase and selling of items now will play a sound. Left and right nav buttons at the campaign selection screen, we already have that. Localized race names in the Crowpedia window. Modified the sound for world select and the campaign buttons. Modified UI for crafted vessel to clarify that you cannot use lower quality vessels or vessels the character does not have sufficient level for. Promotion information now shows in the lobby character pop-up. I'm so sorry. I always get this when I'm reading patch notes. Modified UI for crafted vessels to clarify that you cannot use lower quality vessels of... Already had that as well. Promotion information now shows the lobby character pop-up. Talent icons more accurately represent the functional effect of purchasing a particular talent box. The build information is now displayed in the lobby. The outcome of resources messages show resources missing. The power and buff tooltip description for energetic harvesting now match. The Vault Bank Overflow UI now should appear at the appropriate times. The version info will now show at the tops of the lobby screens. Chat. Added a scroll bar to chat and remove the arrows. Optional profanity filter added to chat on by default. Toggleable in settings. Now let's get to the powers, the real interesting part. General powers. Bleeds now work on a per class basis. Each class has a class specific bleed that is applied when they apply a standard bleed. A target can have one of each of the class specific bleeds on them at a time. Cleanse powers that remove bleeds will still remove all bleeds on you. So before there was only one bleed category, and no matter which class applied a bleed, they overrode each other, but now every class has their own bleed, and so they can kind of stack. Fix the typo in the passive buff description of Selena's Mirth. Stealth blockers will no longer apply to vessels that cannot maintain stealth or invisibility in some way. Tune down the visual AoE fields. Ugh. Use Hold F interact while in stealth. Should work properly and not get interrupted. Ultimates that do not place you into the stealth tray will no longer strip damage over time effects when used. So that's a general buff for non-stealthing classes. The Centaur. Fixed weapon placement and leans for Centaur, so on sloped surfaces the weapon stays in his hand. Centaur Vessel is no longer displaying extra swing animations when harvesting stone and ore resources. Centaur Wild Charge will execute its pushback effect again. Removed obsolete axe pole mace traits from Centaur. Modified the Elkin Headbutt to work like the Bull Rush. Sweet, so Elkin now works like the Minotaur Charge or Headbutt. The Fey Glide Wing effects will no longer persist while running around. The Minotaurs. Fix the Minotaur weapon position on Master of Daggers animations. Champion. Long list. Champions got buffed. Especially the Alpha Warriors, or at least the Alpha Warriors. So, Alpha Ages of Salvation has been renamed to Ages of Destruction, and the icon for the first attack has been replaced. Alpha Warrior Promotion Enhancement now adds a slow to hit target by leap. Alpha Warrior Promotion Enhancements now increase the number of targets hit by Whirling Pain to 7. Nice, I like that. Alpha Warrior Promotion will now consistently do more damage with their Neckbreaker ultimate than other champions. So there also damage has been increased. Corrected a typo in the Animosity talent. Corrected a typo in the title of the talent Mighty Warrior. Disarming Shout is now a 6-meter cone attack with a max hit of 3 targets instead of a single target attack. Fixed ability description of anger management. Fixed Stoneboard champion weapon orientation. Increased basic resource gain for rage to be 5 instead of 4. This occurs mainly when you hit with your basic attack. Kick Sand now blinds instead of stuns. Yeah, the way it's supposed to be. Increased basic, wait, I had that. Mighty Warrior, Brutal Warrior and Ultimate Warrior buff durations have been shorted to 13 seconds and the cooldowns have been reduced from 68 to 40 seconds. Mighty Warrior now increases the damage bonus cap by 10 in addition to the 20% damage bonus buff. Another Alpha Warrior buff. Neckbreaker's area has been increased from 5 to 6 meters. There we go. Another buff. Overwhelming Uppercut, which is the third chain of the auto attack. Now a description has been updated to be more specific. Note it's a single target attack. Pit Fighter Promotion Enhancement no longer adds root to the Neckbreaker power. Yeah, Pit Fighter's got another nerf, but who plays a Pit Fighter anyway? Removed rage cost from Champion Insanity. Cleric. Crusader Holy Symbol buff. Blessed Symbol hanging effect description has been updated to state the correct buff amounts granted by the buff. Fixed Cleric basic attack hit visual effects. Radical passive no longer reduce the cost of Divine Order by 500, so it's 1000, so that means radicals don't get 100% uptime on their ultimate. What this basically tells us, if you still want to play a radical, roll a half giant and put Spirit Whip on it, so you at least hit 3 targets for reduced damage instead of 4 for the full damage. But it's still a nerf, and the needed nerf. Radical promotion now grants 150 attack power instead of 200, 50 less attack power. That should put them right in the place where they belong and where they should be. Radical promotion no longer reduces the cooldown of Divine Order. This has been removed to the radical passive power. The Confessors. Barrier removal ability will remove all portions of the Force Shield ability. Benediction now properly affects some Confessor powers. Blink of Faith barrier will no longer cause visual indication that it is stacking with other barriers. Correcting the timing of the Confessor power Redemption. Sanctifier promotion Furore will prevent crowd control effects more reliably. The Druid. Also interesting changes to the Druid. Light explosion orbs now give a visual indicator to enemies before exploding. Coalescence nature orbs visual updated. Corrected the Stormcaller promotion talent description. Critical visual effects will no longer be culled when you reach your cull limit. This includes things like the Druid healing orbs. Druid Healing Orb 3, so the third in the chain, now has a more distinct visual effect. Electrogenesis orbs now appear in front of the caster where the proc happened from. Force of Nature damage healing has been slightly increased, and the damage generated by a healing orb now gives a proper warning, similar to a Blight Orb flip. A Force of Nature healing damage done by healing orbs and Blight has been slightly increased. Gaia's Growth now spawns the Coalesce orbs for each enemy hit. Nature's Grace description has been updated to note that Thorns or Retribution will not trigger the healing of the buff. Projectile of Static and Shock Bow left mouth button combo powers are now displayed correctly. Shared Gift now cause your healing orbs to also heal up to 5 additional friendlies in the area of for a reduced amount. Soothing Winds description has been updated to better describe the extra jumps. Stormcallers and non-promoted druids will no longer lose essence when picking up Coalescence nature orbs cast by other druid. Will-O-Wisps has been moved into the druid talent tree in place of Soothing Winds. Will-O-Wisp is now an instant cast power and its cooldown has been reduced to 12 seconds. Winds of Corruption now has FX when it hits the player. Big buffs to druids, especially to arc druids and the Earthkeeper in my opinion. They have been strong already, so I think we are going into a Earthkeeper healing meta, especially for Hunger Dome and stuff. Check these classes out. Duelist. Cheap Shot no longer automatically critically hits an imposed target. Cheap Shot no longer triggers Sweet Victory twice when you stun somebody with it. Fixed an issue with Duelist Vanish power, where the fuse sound was not stopping if the barrel exploded early by hitting an enemy. Fixed the Duelist buff not lighting up on a pip meter. Master of Darkness Discipline Stink Bomb no longer applies corruption to the target but instead applies damage when initially hit. Yeah, the Stink Bomb was buffed. You could build basically crazy spike damage builds where with Stink Bomb and out of stealth attack, especially on the Vanguard Scout, you could just blow up people instantly. Won't be possible anymore with 500-600. Rapid Fire is now applies a knockdown to an exposed target that is actively attacking. Sweet Victory no longer triggers twice when stunning someone with the Waylayer Cheap Shot power. And the Tunnel King Discipline, Go for Broke, no longer automatically critically hits on exposed targets. The Elkin Headbutt will now hit immediately when you strike your target, like the Minotaur. The Fey Glide Wing FX will no longer persist while running around. The Frostweaver added an end animation to Ice Block so you stop animating when the ability ends. Ice Weave now properly creates stable ice when cast with exactly 200 mana. Ice Weave no longer creates stable ice when casting with at least one ice in storage but not enough mana. It will not properly give you mana. Refreshing Breeze now creates a wreck ankle crowd effects in the area it hits. Refrigerate soul power cost has been reduced back from 750 to 500. Yes, this makes the Archmage viable again. If the damage is not a bit too... I still have to look into that. I haven't checked that one out. The character is no longer stuck in an animation pose after channeling the Icy Vein's ultimate power, and Volatile Ice base effects should be removed after being exploded. The Half-Giant. Blood of the Giant description has been updated to reflect the correct length of the damage reduction. The Knight. Fixed an issue where Obliterate was not properly applying a bleed when used by a swordsman. Knight basic attack impacts positioned correctly now. Redirected strike buff tooltip amount now correctly matches the power description. And redirected strike had its personal damage modifier buff has been reduced from 90 to 80, and the retribution buff now occurs after the initial buff wears off. The retribution buff has been reduced from 60 to 20. Ouch. But the swordsman has been OP, so I think the nerf, yes, good one. Shield Bash description has been updated to state that only performing 3 consecutive basic attacks enables it. Spiked Shield now works with Whirling Leap. The Myrmidon. Control defense granted by the talent tree of Myrmidon now properly decreases the duration of ground control effects instead of increasing them. Indomitable passive hit points buff has been increased from 150 to 200 per enemy within 20 meters when you berserk, and Iron Hide now grants additional buffs. Your bleed damage bonus by 10% and attack power by 75. The duration of the buff has been increased from 15 seconds to 20, and the area of the attack has been increased from 5 meters to 8 meters. The Ranger. Sweep's cooldown has been reduced from base 23 seconds to a base of 15 seconds. Flare Arrow of X will no longer disappear when a second instance of it ends. Flare Arrow of X will now properly thunk to the ground when aiming in the air. Jab's cooldown has been increased to 30 seconds from 9. Ow! That hurts. Wait, Jab is the secondary ability. Okay, so it's not that bad. You can still disengage. Range Sustain FX now displays correctly. Steel Trap's passive description has been updated to better describe the enhancements of your traps. Sweep's cooldown has been reduced from a base 23 seconds to a base of 15 seconds. Nice, that's good. Fixed sword orientation on Holy Warrior. This is the Templar, by the way. Holy Warrior is now usable while you are mounted and dismounts you. Divine Light is no longer usable while mounted. Judgment base cost is now properly 2 and correctly reduces to 1 when you promote to Vindicator. Good change. Righteous Reflection is reflect. Rain damage has been reduced from 60 to 50. Also a good one. Righteous Defense now has a safety on it to ensure it does not trigger on a Templar at 0 HP. Wood Elves are now properly immune to being rooted. And now, last but not least, oh boy, no, we're not done yet. We're not done yet by a long thing. By long. So let's continue. The disciplines. Arcane Arrow Projectile FX no longer shoots backwards. Beres Insignia's discipline. Champion Domain no longer has access to Beres Insignia Minor Discipline. Beres Insignia fixed a typo in the Beres Insignia's power description. Blitzer. Banner of Storms now affects up to 8 allies. Blitzer Haunt's cooldown has been reduced. Blood Pact Discipline. Blood Pact description has been updated to state it does not affect basic attacks, dodges, retaliates, and ultimates. Blood Rose. Minor is no longer granted to humans. Aww. Blood Rose now only applies the Thorns buff when healing yourself or a group member. Bringer of Life. Purity Tooltip has been updated to correct an issue that caused the cooldown time to be overwriting the resource cost. Bringer of Life. Fountain of Life cooldown has been reduced. Demolisher has been added to the war domain. Demolisher Shield Breaker now places a block parry cooldown when it breaks. 1. That's 5 seconds, by the way. Dispel. Dispel minor disciplines have been added to the Justice domain. Dispel now properly knocks down the target if it hits a barrier. Disciplines that give you plus 100 loot protection will make it so you have only a 50% chance of loose items in the drags. Field Surgeon. Fly you fools no longer applies a buff when the caster dies. Instead, it will recharge a dodge charge for your group members when you heal them below 35% health. Nice! That was actually... I suggested that it sucks to have a power that gives you a benefit when you die. I mean, that's like you plan to die. Who does that? Alright, Field Surgeon. Rescue description has been updated to state it heals for X health rather than saying X damage. Fixed issue with uncommon minor disciplines dropping in God's Reach. Force Wave area of effect has been increased to 8 meters and it now adds an elemental break. Frostbiter. Fix an issue where absorbed healing was reported as a hit in the combat log instead of a heal. Frozen Dancer. Frigid Ground no longer has an errant oval decal in the area when cast. Hydrologist. Water Spirits. Max targets healed been increased to 40 from 30. The trigger radius has been increased from 4 to 4 from 3. And the heal debuff radius has been increased to 7 meters when it's triggered. Ice Armorer. Ice Armory description and short discipline description updated to better describe how it works. Ice Armorer. Ice Armory description has been updated to better describe the ice cost for the multiple armors being spawned. Increase the size of the radius of mass dispel. Last Resort now triggers when below 35% instead of below 25%. Lord of the Forest Protection Stake FX now lasts for the proper duration. Master of Focus Chaos Orb can now be charged while moving. And the damage radius has been increased from 3 meters to 5 meters when triggered. Master of Focus. Mana Shield has been renamed to Resource Shield and no longer uses your mana as a health pool. Resource Shield now applies a barrier that when removed will restore some of your class resources. That is interesting because it's actually a change of the mana barrier, which works as a nerf to the Radical because he has such a huge mana pool, but all the other classes actually benefit from it because they have problem with their mana pool, so the mana restore is for all classes actually a buff in my opinion, except for the Radical. There it's a nerf because it takes sustain away from him. Militant Mage. Warp weapon description has been updated to note the debuff occurs when the target attacks anyone. Naiad. Naiad powers will now appear in the Druid Deathray. Nature's Guardian. Soothing Winds has replaced Will-O-Wisp on the Nature's Guardian discipline. Plague Lord. Festering Wounds cooldown has been reduced from a base of 45 seconds to a base of 30 seconds. Protection Stake has replaced Slow Stake on the Nature Guardian discipline. Protection Stake effects no longer persists an abnormally long period of time. Reality Warper. Shrivel cooldown has been reduced to a base of 15 seconds. Reality Warper. Spiritual Decay cooldown has been decreased to 30 seconds and the pulsing AoE debuff duration has been increased to 30 seconds to match. Reality Warper. Alter Reality now applies an incoming critical healing debuff to the targets in addition to the heal absorbing barrier. The heal absorb barrier has been updated to deal damage when healed off, instead of when it expires, and the cooldown has been reduced to 24 seconds. Righteous Smash is no longer overridden by Pixie Dust and stacks with it. Scrapper in the Fray now grants 75 attack power and 10% personal damage modifier, damage reduction buff, when used. It no longer relies on enemies being in the area. Soothing Wind description has been better updated to describe how the jumps work. Spirit Speaker. Electrogenesis orbs now appear in front of the caster where the proc happened from. Spreading Flame. Spreading Flame icon has been updated so that it differs from Archon's Fury, and they are likely to be on the same bar. Stalwart. Getting Behind Me description now lists the correct amount of personal damage modifier, and it grants to your group while you are blocking. Standard Bearer. Barrier no longer prevent fall damage. Stay in the fight will no longer stop harvesting for some archetypes. Survivalist Exploration. Bandaging bonus granted by the legendary Survivalist Exploration discipline has been corrected to 100%. The Force Shield and Sons of Warren Barrier can now be removed by barrier removal abilities. Troubadour. Reduce the visibility of the FX. Troubadour. Tone down the sound of the passive Requiem. Oh yeah. Unstable Mage. Arcane Barrier no longer blocks the Son of Warren Barrier. Unstable Mage. Reckoning now uses your weapon damage type instead of bleed damage type. And Waylayer fixed an issue where the Sweet Victory could fire more than once every 10 seconds. Now to the general changes. Added a primitive bandage vendor to God's Reach so player who destroyed the bandage given to them won't be stuck in the quest line. Added a sign near canyon stairs that the caravan cannot climb. Seriously, they can't climb it, so don't try. Their little legs just can't do it. Added an animation when Stronghold hero statues are destroyed. Added location to the quest description in the logs. Added rocks to a hill incline area on Sun Temple that players were unable to climb. Added support for LOD fade-in to reduce pop-in. Adjusted culling on the dragon statue. Adjusted the tooltip of hot peppers to mention that it adds 2% fire damage bonus. Barriers no longer prevent falling damage. Creation of dizzy status effects. Fixed the problem where some users get persistent lock-in failed. Error on test and live. Fixed an issue where some items had a sell value of -1 gold. Fixed an issue where some the HP of avatars or NPCs with full health are displayed as empty. Fixed an issue where a player running and jumping on a horse was faster than a horse running. Fixed an issue where dobbers were visually going under the terrain. Fixed an issue where sometimes users were disconnected while redeeming bundles. Fixed an issue with the female centaur shoulders. Holding F to interact will no longer get interrupted when using while in stealth. Mind in Motion buff from Potion of Sapper would now display the duration of its buff tooltip. Players can now sell items to player vendors. It just behaves like a system vendor in this case. Switch the appearance of the human and the Atari sickles. Text no longer overlaps when comparing equipment tooltips to stat attributes. The armor tab updates with all mitigation changes. The VIP passive now reduces the rate of food consumption consuming by 25 and reduces the amount of mount decay by 25%. Ooh, nice perks for VIP. Updated tags of class trainers including information about their ultimates. You should now be able to purchase all items from vendors even if you cannot use the item. Yes, love it. World Bank no longer displays a rank in the tooltip. Now to NPCs. Added a leashing shader back to NPCs when they were returning to their spawn point. Added a variety of appearance of NPC vendors. Arok Raw Frostweaver NPCs are no longer immune to ground control effect. Boss ranked Musshawk NPCs now perform additional special attacks and behaviors. Auroch Basic Attack 1 will no longer display its FX behind the Auroch. Durate NPC Winds of Corruption now has an effect when it hits players. Duelist NPC's NPC version for Go for Broke now correctly plays an SFX when it's cast. Elemental attacks now show animations. Elemental Golem 3rd Rock Toss now properly displays 2 projectile being thrown. Elemental Golem Rock Throw FX should properly be appearing. Elk AoE effect no longer persists when they are killed. Fix the raid problem when an NPC died while pathing. Fix the sunken training dummy in God's Reach. Fix an issue with NPC Power Templar Divine Light having VFX spawn on ticks instead of on-off. Fix an issue where caravans lost speed moving up a hill. Fix an issue where Ranger Raw tribes at low levels were dropping swift saddle recipes. Fix training dummies to be unkillable once again. improve the alg animations. NPC Flare Arrow now plays hit effects when damaging you. Ranger NPC Flare Arrow now properly displays a hit effects when it's damaging a player. Reduced the density of war tribes in infected zones. Removed some ladder props that the war tribe were being stuck in. The NPC miners near the Motherlodes in Godsreed's quest will now be animated to help you mine the node. The Griffin boss sap power now deals damage to the target. The Griffin bosses should now use all their powers. Moved some floating ranger guard near the Godsreed refinery. Ugard the miner should now have a picture showing the sizes of a mother lode and a normal harvesting node. Updated bugbear loot, updated the wolf attack FX. You should now be able to purchase all items from the vendors even if you cannot use them. We already had that. And last but not least, the sounds. Added a custom sound and consuming vessel, adding sound to various UI bottoms in the lobby, including the reset to default button, filter buttons in the campaign result window, and filter buttons in player server world bank view. Changing world band via the nav buttons now play a distinct sound band. Hunger Crystal will once again have the heartbeat sound playing. Instant purchase and the sale of item now plays a sound. Updated the sound effect for several powers. You'll now hear a sound for binding to an altar statue. Thank you for listening to me talking that much. I try to make it as quick as possible. If you like my content, hit the subscribe button. Drop by on my stream if you have questions. Thank you for watching and see you soon with new videos, guides, builds and other stuff. Bye bye.